My name is Aurelia Fenton, and at 70 years old, I still iron tablecloths on Sundays. Old habits hold the corners of my life together. After my husband died, I kept everything neat: the silver, the linen, even my voice. Order made the silence less sharp. That afternoon, Lydia invited me to lunch downtown. She sounded soft on the phone, almost shy, saying she wanted to share some wedding updates. It had been months since she'd asked for anything that wasn't financial. I took it as a good sign. I put on the pale blue jacket she'd once called elegant and slipped my pearls into place. They always made me feel like myself. The cafe was all glass and chatter. Lydia waved from a corner booth, her fiancé, Evan, beside her. He stood to greet me, awkward and polite. Lydia looked radiant, too radiant. Her hands fluttered when she talked, full of plans, colours, menus, names I didn't know. I listened, smiling, the way mothers do when they want to believe they're still part of something. When our tea arrived, I opened my purse and pulled out an old photograph. Lydia was 8 in it, wearing a wedding gown she'd made from my curtains. She'd forced her little brother to officiate with a hairbrush microphone. She had looked so proud, so certain love would last forever. I found this last week, I said, passing it across the table. You've been dreaming of that aisle for a long time. I'm so excited for your wedding. Lydia looked at the photo, then at me. The smile she gave wasn't cruel, just clean, like something rehearsed. Oh, Mum, she said gently. You're not invited. It's just close family. For a moment, even the cafe noise seemed to fall away. Evan's eyes dropped to his cup. My throat tightened, but my hands stayed still around the handle of my tea. Years of hosting dinner parties had trained me not to spill. I see, I said. I folded my napkin, placed it neatly beside my plate, and stood. The waitress started to bring the bill, but I already had my card out. I paid, smiled at no one in particular, and left. Outside. The sky over Portland hung low and white. In the reflection of a shop window, I saw my own hand tremble as I reached up and unclasped my pearls. They felt suddenly heavy in my palm. The house felt smaller that evening. I made tea the way I always did, 1 spoon for me, 1 for the memory of my husband. His photo on the mantel still wore that half smile that never faded, no matter how many times life folded me in half. By the time I sat down, my phone had already lit up with messages. Lydia's name blinked first. Hope you got home okay. Don't take lunch personally. It's complicated. I didn't answer. Complications were what she said when something cruel needed a softer coat. Nora dropped by just before dusk. She's been my friend since the neighbourhood still smelled like sawdust and wet paint. A retired accountant, sharp as ever, she placed a grocery bag on my counter: strawberries, scones, her kind of apology for checking on me. She really said that Nora asked, pouring herself coffee. She did. Nora whistled low. You paid her tuition, didn't you? Art school in California. I nodded. $38,000. I kept the receipts. And the down payment on her first apartment. $65,000. Nora leaned back, arms crossed. You've been funding her independence for years. I smiled thinly. That's what mothers do. We fill the gaps. No. Aurelia, she said gently. Kindness without boundaries becomes servitude. Her words landed like a hand on my chest, steady, not cruel. I wanted to argue, but instead I refilled her cup. Old habits again. After she left, the house went silent except for the clock's thin heartbeat. I took my old ledger from the drawer, the same one I used to balance our life when my husband was alive. Each page was lined with numbers, dates, small notations: car repair, $2,000, deposit for wedding venue, $10,000, Lydia tuition, remaining balance cleared. Every gift looked like an invoice now. I ran my fingers over the pages, tracing what love had cost me. Then I closed the book, turned off the lamp, and sat in the dark until the air settled. Down the street, someone's wind chimes sang in the night, soft, precise, and just a little lonely. By Sunday morning, the story had already spread further than I imagined. At church, the air hummed with a kind of polite curiosity. Conversations hushed when I passed. People smiled too quickly, then looked away. I sat in the third pew, hands folded in my lap, pretending to read the bulletin. Behind me, 2 women whispered, small, private ceremony, only close family. One said, "That's lovely." The other answered, "So intimate." Their words landed like small, sharp stones. I had said those same phrases about other people's weddings once, never realizing how they could bruise when pointed the other way. After service. Pastor Mark stopped me near the doorway. "You must be so proud of Lydia," he said warmly. I smiled back, the muscles in my face stiff. "I am." "Will you be traveling to Hood River for the big day?" I shook my head. No, I wasn't invited. His mouth opened, then closed again. He patted my shoulder, uncertain, as if kindness itself had turned fragile. At home. I turned on the kettle, then forgot about it until the whistle went hoarse. My phone rang Nora. I made soup. She said, "You're eating with me, or I'm showing up with a spoon." When she arrived, she didn't look at me the way the others had. She ladled broth into a bowl and sat across from me at the kitchen table. "They're calling it a small family wedding," I said quietly, as if I've somehow grown less related. Nora's expression didn't change. "You didn't grow less related. Aurelia, you just stopped paying for admission." I almost laughed, but it caught in my throat. "I think I've been fired from motherhood." She reached for my hand, the way only an old friend can. "No," she said, "you've just stopped working for free." For a long moment, neither of us spoke. The soup cooled between us, and the clock ticked like a steady metronome. Later that night, I sat in bed and replayed Lydia's voice in my mind, soft, rehearsed, careful. It sounded almost proud, the way people sound when they finally say something they've been practicing for months. I reached for my calendar, found the circled date, and drew one clean line through it. Then I closed the book and turned off the light. That night, the house felt too quiet to sit still in. I carried my tea into the study, the one room I never let Lydia redecorate. The filing cabinet waited in the corner, grey, dented, loyal. It held 40 years of life in thin metal drawers, bills, deeds, letters, tax slips, everything my husband once called the paper bones of a family. I pulled the top drawer open. The smell of old ink and dust rose up, familiar and unforgiving. Folders lay in neat rows, my handwriting still steady from another time. Lydia education, house loan, wedding deposit. I opened the first one, tuition statements, payment confirmations, small notes she'd left me. "Promise I'll pay you back." Mum. She never had. I moved to the next folder, copies of bank transfers and a closing statement from the day she bought her apartment. My name was printed in the corner as co-signer. I had forgotten that part. Then came the wedding file. A stack of invoices, venue booking, catering deposit, florist quote, all dated 6 months ago. My signature appeared on the top line of the contract. Lydia's name wasn't on it at all. A knock came at the doorframe. Nora leaned in, a cardigan pulled tight around her. Couldn't sleep. "Just sorting through the past," I said. She stepped closer, glancing at the papers spread across my desk. "You keep records like a bank. Old habit." Her eyes caught the venue contract. "You realize this makes you the contracting client, right?" I looked up. "What do you mean?" She pointed at the header. "Your account, your name, your authorization. Unless you transferred it legally, that booking's still yours." I stared at the document, the ink suddenly sharper. She said she handled it months ago. Maybe she thought she did. Nora said quietly. Or maybe she never looked at the fine print. I nodded, though the movement felt heavy. Around us, the lamplight flickered, turning the papers gold for a moment before fading back to grey. Every gift I'd ever given now sat in a pile, tidy and undeniable, each one whispering the same thing love recorded, interest unpaid. I gathered the pages into a neat stack and placed them back in their folder. My hands shook only once. Then I closed the drawer. The call came just after breakfast. I was rinsing my teacup when the phone buzzed against the counter, an unfamiliar number from Hood River flashing on the screen. Mrs. Fenton, a polite male voice said, "This is Graham from Hearthstone Ridge Event Hall. I wanted to confirm a payment issue connected to your upcoming booking." I wiped my hands on a towel. "Booking." "Yes, ma'am. The event scheduled for late May. It appears a recent payment attempt from your daughter's account was declined. Since the initial deposit was made by you, the contract remains under your name." For a moment, I just listened to the hum of the line. "Declined." I repeated softly. "That's right," he said. "We usually contact the primary client when there's a billing problem. I thought perhaps you were aware. I wasn't." He hesitated. "Well, your deposit of $10,000 secures the date. You can choose To cancel, transfer, or repurpose the booking within 60 days. Repurpose. Such an odd, generous word. I see, I said. If I wanted to use it for something else, how would that work? Quite simple. We'd adjust the event type and update the guest list. The payment stands. You just need to sign a revision. I could hear him typing in the background. Professional, detached, but inside me, something delicate turned. My gaze drifted toward the refrigerator where my husband's old design sketches still hung beneath a chipped magnet. His handwriting curved across the bottom margin. Beauty deserves gratitude, not entitlement. Mrs. Fenton. Graham prompted. I'm here, I said. My voice sounded steadier than I felt. I'll keep the date. There was a pause on his end. Wonderful. Would you like to rename the event? Yes, I said, looking again at the sketches. The Fenton Design Scholars Evening. Lovely, he replied. We'll send an updated confirmation tonight. After we hung up, I stood in the kitchen a long time, listening to the ticking of the clock and the faint wind moving through the trees outside. The tea had gone cold, but the air around me felt strangely clear, like a curtain finally drawn back. I took the sketches off the fridge and laid them flat on the counter, smoothing the edges with my fingertips. Then I whispered to the empty room, "We'll make it worth something again." The road to Hood River curved through fog and wet pine. My hands ached against the steering wheel, but I kept driving. Every few miles, I caught myself rehearsing how to sound professional, not bitter. Hearthstone Ridge stood at the top of a hill, white stone against a pale sky. Inside, the air smelled of flowers and new paint. A man in a navy jacket came forward. Mrs. Fenton. I'm Graham. We spoke on the phone. He led me through a hall lined with mirrors. My reflection appeared and disappeared, with every step a reminder of the years that had vanished while I was busy helping everyone else stand upright. Graham handed me a folder. If you'd like to keep the date, we just need your signature on the transfer form. There's a $50 administrative fee. I signed slowly, the pen pressing through the paper, and the event name he asked. I looked toward the ballroom, where sunlight slid across the empty floor. Fenton Design Scholars Evening, I said. He typed it carefully, then smiled. That's beautiful. I'll send the confirmation to your email and, by default, to your daughter's since she was listed as a contact. That's fine, I said. When I handed him my card for the fee, he paused. You're remarkably calm. Mrs. Fenton, most families panic when these things happen. I stopped confusing panic with love a long time ago. He didn't ask what I meant. People rarely do when the truth arrives too cleanly. Back in the car, I sat for a moment before turning the key. My phone lit up 12 messages, all from Lydia. What did you do? Why did I get an email about the venue? Mum, please call me now. I read them once, then pressed mute. The silence filled the car like a warm tide. Through the windshield, the ballroom windows glimmered a reflection of a space that finally belonged to me again. I drove home without the radio, my hands steady on the wheel. The knock came before noon hard, rapid, the kind that carried anger through wood. When I opened the door, Lydia pushed past me. Evan followed slower, head down. You stole my wedding, she shouted, her voice cracked halfway through the word. Stole. I closed the door behind them. Good morning to you too. She spun around. Don't you dare act calm. You had no right to change the booking. I had every right, I said evenly. My name was on the contract. My money secured the date. Evan stepped forward, palms raised. Mrs. Fenton, maybe we can just... Don't call her Mrs. Fenton. Lydia snapped. She's enjoying this. I walked to the kitchen counter, lifted the kettle, and poured tea into 3 cups. I'm not enjoying it. Lydia, I'm just finished funding disrespect. You think this is about money? Her face flushed. You embarrassed me. Everyone knows what you did. I placed a cup in front of her. Drink something before you say something you can't undo. She didn't touch it. You're cruel, she hissed. You always have to be in control. My education, my apartment, now my wedding. Cruel, I repeated quietly. Cruel was letting you believe I didn't notice the way you used me and called it love. Evan exhaled, rubbing the back of his neck. Lyd, she's not wrong. You knew she paid for everything. Don't take her side, Lydia barked. He looked at me then, eyes tired. We should have handled things differently. I nodded once. You still can. Build your marriage on honesty. It will hold better than mine did at your age. Lydia's lips trembled, but pride lifted her chin. You'll regret this. I already did, I said, for a heartbeat. No one moved. The only sound was the slow ticking of the wall clock. Then Lydia turned, stormed through the doorway and down the path. Evan lingered, his voice low. "She loves you, you know," he said. "I know," I answered. She just confuses love with ownership. When the door closed, I carried the untouched cup to the sink and poured it out. The steam rose briefly, then disappeared. The morning of the wedding dawned like any other. I woke early, folded the same linen napkins I once saved for holidays, and packed them neatly in a canvas bag. The air outside carried that spring sweetness that used to make me ache for company. This time it only felt clean. When I arrived at Hearthstone Ridge, the parking lot was already filling. Nora waved from the entrance, wearing one of my husband's old pins on her lapel. Inside, tables gleamed beneath soft amber light. A framed portrait of my husband rested near the door, his kind eyes catching the glow. Nora squeezed my hand. "He'd be proud," she whispered. "He always liked a good party," I said. The small crowd gathered young designers, art teachers, a few of my husband's former students. The hall smelled faintly of lilies, the kind I used to send Lydia after every school exhibit. When the speeches began, Nora stood first. "Tonight," she said, raising her glass, "we honour the Fentons, who believe beauty belongs to anyone willing to build it." The room applauded. I didn't cry, though my chest swelled like something tender trying to lift its head. Halfway through the evening, one of the students approached me, shy, holding an envelope with the new scholarship logo. "Thank you, Mrs. Fenton," she said. "You have no idea what this means." "I think I do," I told her. Later, while the band packed up, Nora checked her phone and frowned slightly. "Looks like Lydia's other wedding didn't happen," she murmured. "Florist cancelled. Caterer refused service without prepayment. Social media's buzzing. Venue double booked, they say." I nodded, not surprised. The quiet in the hall felt almost sacred now. She looked at me carefully. "Do you want to see No?" I said. "I've already lived enough of that story." We stood together by the doorway, the light from the chandeliers warming our faces. Beyond the glass, the valley turned gold with evening. Nora smiled. "It's beautiful here." I lifted my glass one last time. "Peace looks better in warm light." She clinked hers softly against mine. The sound was small, steady, and enough. The ocean outside my window sounded different than the river in Portland, steadier, as if it breathed for both of us. I moved into the cottage 2 weeks after the gala. The furniture was simple: 2 armchairs, 1 oak table, and a set of linen curtains I sewed myself. It was enough. Most mornings, I walked to the library to teach design basics to widows who wanted to redecorate the spaces their husbands had left behind. They came with scraps of fabric, chipped frames, half-finished plans. I showed them how to build something new without erasing what had been. "You can't fix grief," I told them once, "but you can rearrange it until it fits again." One afternoon, the mail arrived with a small envelope addressed in Lydia's handwriting. No return address, just the same looping cursive she'd used on thank you cards years ago. I opened it carefully. "I understand now. I'm sorry." The words were short, hesitant, still. I could hear her voice inside them, calmer, maybe older. I sat for a while, then wrote a reply on a card I kept for polite occasions. "I hope your marriage lasts longer than my patience did." I didn't sign it. "Love, Mum." Some things no longer needed naming. That evening, Nora stopped by with a basket of scones. She looked around the cottage, nodded approvingly. "It feels like you," she said. "It finally does," I answered. On the porch, the brass plaque I'd ordered gleamed in the last line of sunlight. The letters caught the colour of honey built by boundaries, kept by respect. Nora ran her thumb across the edge. "You think she'll come around?" she asked gently. "I think she'll learn," I said. "We both are." We sat in silence, listening to the waves folding into one another. The air smelled of salt and baked dough. I realised how long it had been since quiet felt kind instead of punishing. As the tide rose, I leaned back in my chair and watched the horizon fade to silver. My voice barely carried over the wind. "They said family was forever." I murmured. "I just chose which forever to live in." Nora passed me a warm scone, and I took it, without a word. The sea kept breathing, steady and endless, like something finally set free.